Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modeler Bench. Right, here we are now with part 9 of the build of this Dambuster Lancaster. And if you remember in part 8, that was probably about 5-6 days ago I filmed that. So everything is all nice and dry now. As you can see, as promised, I've filled these panel lines in the elevators. So we'll be looking at those in a minute and seeing if we can make them look like fabric rather than the sheet metal that Airfix have given us. So that's that. We'll have a look at some larger scale ones and we'll see what we're going to do there. Before we do that, we've got lots of little bits and pieces to be looking at. So if you remember, we built up the engine nacelles, we've got the outboard engines here, and we've done all the seams, made sure all the edges are good, like on the front here, on the back here, and then the same on here, but the wheelbase as well, that's all good. We've got some black super glue in there, so when we look at that, we got a nice edge rather than two bits coming together. So all in all, coming on well. So we've got lots of greeblies to put on. So as you know, they told us to paint all this, so we don't need to worry about painting that first. And those bits are already in there, as you can see. We've got the radiators down in there in the hole, and that panel above it as well. So what they're asking us to do next is to fit this little vent in here, this little flap F9. So obviously what we're going to do is paint down inside there black first and maybe give it a little dry brush of silver. I don't know, we'll see what we're going to do down there. But we'll get some black paint in there. We'll get some black paint on the back of these flaps. The flaps are on the sprue here, you can see them there. So obviously if we put them in on the back side, you're not going to be able to get in there with the paint. So we'll paint the back of them first, and we'll literally just, sorry for catching the camera, we'll literally just paint them on the sprue. And then when we have to clear this, we have to clean the sides up, but we'll have to paint the whole engines anyway, so we'll do that on them. And then the same here for these flame shrouds. They hide the flames from the exhaust. We're going to paint inside those black as well. They're still on the sprue. As you can see, we're just going to paint inside of those black, just so that it all looks black in there. And we'll also paint all around here, all in there. We're also going to paint all inside here and everything. And get that all done. We've also got over the page, we have these panels here. These are the forward bulkheads for the wheelbase, and they're asking us to paint this green. I think this should be black. The area up in here is black. I'm not sure, I can't remember, I'm going to have to check the references. I can't remember if this is green or black, but basically what we've got in here is a groove. You can see down in there, there's a groove. And this is going to clip in there, and literally it does clip in just like so. It's rather awkward, but it does clip in. And if I was building this again, I think what I'd probably do is put it in before I glue the two halves together, because you run the risk of splitting that joint open there. But it does go in there, and you can see it's clipped in solid. I can't get it out, but I will put a couple of drops of cement in there anyway, just to hold it, just in case. So we'll put a drop there, we'll put a drop there, and we'll do the same on this one, which I fitted earlier. I was just dry fitting it as a sort of rehearsal. Yes, we do rehearsals, and so that'll hold that in place. So that's that fitted. That's part D10 times 2. And again, we've got all the same on this one. We've got these flame shrouds, we've got the flap going in the bottom there, and then it's going to be on to actually fitting the engines onto the wings. So we really are starting to come together now. So let's get some paint down, and I'm going to go and check whether these should be. I'm sure they should be black, and maybe further up parts that aren't even there. Yeah, you see there's parts that aren't even there yet that should be green up above here. So I'm not sure if we've actually got anything going in there. We'll have to have a look. But probably easier on this just to do the whole thing black. So I'm also looking at that, and I'm thinking when we actually get this on, we're going to see inside that upper panel there, so we'll make sure that's all black as well. So yeah, it's not strictly correct here. There's bits not there. So what we'll do, we'll paint the inside of those black as well. And again, they're on the same sprue, and there's one which was loose in the box when I bought the kit. The box is trying to fall off the table. There's one there. So as we can see, when this goes together, That's going to sit up in there like that. So you're going to see up inside there. So we'll paint the inside of those black as well. So we'll get that done at the same time. So I'll get some black painting done and then we'll come back and look at some greeblies. Here we are, all done. Sprayed the inside of those black, sprayed the inside of these, all the inside of the flame dampeners or flame hiders, whatever. I've also done the fronts of these air intakes on the sides. They're the carburetor intakes, I think, because when you put them on, they sort of hook around the front. You might struggle to get the paint in there. So you can see I've also put some paint on the front there, paint in there, paint inside there. And I've also just gone over the top just quickly to have a look and do a bit of a check on the seam. Best thing to do with that, black is not really the best for looking at seams, but when you put it down, when it's still wet, if you hold it in the light while it's glossy, it will show you if there's anything there. And also because it's black, Mr. Surfacer, it's a micro filler as well. So we've also then gone around and sanded the bottom. As you can see on this one, I had a little bit of a low spot here. So all I've done is just sanded away until that low spot becomes sort of level with the rest, and then it's all good then. And you can also see this line here I've rescribed because it disappears when you sand it, just like on this one. You can see that line isn't there. Okay, it disappeared. So what we're going to do, we're going to rescribe that. So I've got this tape here. You can use Dymo tape if you've got any, but this is scribing guide tape. This came from Premium Hobbies. And what I'm going to do is I've got it off the roll and I've cut it in half. A, because it's economical to cut it in half and just use one length instead of two. And B, because the thinner it is, the easier it is to flex. This is the biggest problem with this stuff, is the static. It doesn't want to let go. So I'm just going to put that there adjacent to that line on there, and then come over the top and then line it up with that line there. Okay, and then I've got my trusty old Tamiya scriber I'm using here. Because it's Airfix plastic, it's so soft. If you use anything sharper than this, you'll likely just make a really big gouge in it. And as you can see, what I'm doing is just gently stroking the scriber along the edge of the tape. I'm not trying to make a big line or anything, I'm just trying to just scratch the surface. Just blending it in with the existing line. And then what we can do when we've got a half decent line, we can sort of come to the middle, and you notice I'm not trying to do it all in one. It's not like a riveting wheel. And the panel lines on this kit are quite big, so what I'm trying to do is match the size of them. There we go. We have our scribe line back, as you can see it there. Okay. Now if you want to, you can come with a rivet wheel and do some rivets, as we've got there. So I've got a rivet wheel here. This is I'm going to get the biggest one I've got, which is the 1/32 scale, 1mm apart. And I'm just going to pick up on what's there and just roll the wheel across. Just like so, and I'll just put something there. I don't think it's very straight, but I should have done it better. But it's always difficult doing this stuff on camera when you'd rather have it much closer to you. There we go. So that's just, if I get a sander, you should be able to see. I need a dirty sander. There we go. You can see we got some rivets going across there now. I think on this one they're all over the place, but it doesn't really matter. Oh no, they're not so bad. You can see we've got some rivets there now. It's just, it's just something. Remember, the bottom of this aircraft's going to be painted black anyway, so not really to worry. Right, so let's put all that away. As we're done with all that, we've got no more scribing to do at the moment. So the next thing I want to look at, which I should have done before, go away. Bloody packing tape off that scribing tape. When I had the black paint in the airbrush, I just went in the Bombay and the flaps as well, because I just had some left in there. As I say, black is not good as a seam checker. You're much better with light grey. So I'm not going over here or anything yet. Excuse me. Let's piece that white tape again. It's like everywhere. So So we'll do some seam checking. You'll also notice that the sharp-eyed amongst you, you may notice that while we've been away, we've got a couple of holes. Got one there, one there, one there have appeared in that Mr. Surfacer, and there's one there. So as you can see, it's not, you know, it's good to leave things to dry and let them sort themselves out before you start rushing ahead with all your camouflage and everything, because, you know, if that happened after your model was done, it wouldn't look so good, would it? So the other thing I want to look at now is, I've got the this is a border model elevator, which is the fabric elevator, and as you can see, it doesn't really have much of a fabric effect. It's got more of a raised fabric, so we may actually put some tape on or something. We'll see. We shall see. I don't know, maybe I'll put some strip on there, but I mean, this is for newbies, so you can see I've put some black primer on here, so we can see that we've still got a line there where the where that little trim tab is, which I'm going to scribe back in. I shouldn't have filled them, but you can see we've pretty much lost all the panel lines. But again, what I'll do is I'll give this a rub down, go over any gaps that are there, and then we'll give it a primer with grey. And I think what I'm going to do is perhaps put some very thin plastic strips over to replicate this fabric tape that's on here. We shall see. It looks like Airfix have got this wrong, because on the border model one you've got this actuator there on that trim tab, which is on the wrong side. So I don't know if they swapped sides when they went from fabric to metal elevators or what, I don't know. But I know this is specifically accurate. So you can see the bottom of this one has nothing. The bottom of this one has that little piece there. This also had that little scoop in it, didn't it? Which I don't know, I've never seen that on a Lancaster in my life. And so that's gone, we've got rid of that. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but if you want a bit of accuracy and you're a newbie, sand it, or fill all this panel lines, sand it, and then just leave it at that. It looks much better than having panel lines in it, doesn't it? What I think I might do is go on and add some strips of very thin plastic card over the top to replicate the fabric, or maybe just some tape. I don't know, we shall see. We will cross that bridge when we come to it. So what I'm going to look at now is, what I'm not happy about with Airfix's build sequence is, in here you're going to fit the engines, and then you're going to fit everything else to the model, and right at the end here you're fitting your props and spinners onto your engine intakes, and then you're fitting those intakes on there. But as you can imagine, the seam around the radiator is going to be, you know, not the best. This seam around here, I'd rather deal with that now while I've got this in my hand and I can sand it, rather than have all these little bits and pieces in the way and everything. But the trouble is I can't put the propeller in and have all that as well, because they're just going to get broken off. And the way they've designed the kit is so that you put that piece in from behind, this pin goes in from behind, and then the propeller goes on the front. So I just want to look at how are we going to do this. Now what we could do is put the pin through, put the back plate on, this part here, and then put a little piece of plastic card in there to hold the pin, and then just pop the propeller on afterwards. That's one way of doing it. We could just glue this pin in and have the propellers spin on that shaft, which means they'll fall off every time you pick it up. We could glue that pin in and glue the propellers on and have them not turning. Again, if you knock them, they'll probably snap off. So how are we going to do it? Well, I think the best thing to do is get some parts off the sprue and have a look at how we think we can do it. Okay, so a little while later now, a little bit of work done a little bit of a diagnosis of what's going on and what's wrong and everything. So there's a few problems with this. Not only is it the build sequence is awful, because it means you've got to deal with this seam around here with the propeller in place, which would be an absolute nightmare. There's a few other problems as well. So let's just say you build it as per the instructions. You've got your engines all fitted to the wings, all nicely done and everything, and then you come along to fit these with the propellers attached, remember, so you're going to have a great big spinner on the front of here in the way. And then you come along here and you find that, oh dear, it doesn't fit. It physically doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in there. It doesn't fit in there. It doesn't fit in the other one either. None of them fit. So I've actually made them fit by, you can see that's still tight, what I've done, in fact this one will fit in there. It shows they're all not exactly the same, but basically what I've done, I'll show you on this one. You can see it's not going in there. So basically I've got a knife and come along and cut around the inside of here and just remove some material from this orifice. Okay, being sure we don't slip and cut ourselves. Luckily it's the nice soft, well it's not nice, it's horrible, but it's the soft plastic from Airfix, which makes stuff like this really easy. And then it should, you can see it's still a bit tight, so we're going to take some more out. We're going to probably that area down there. In fact, what I think we'll do is cut something off of that corner just to help things a bit. There we go. It's still, you can see it's still sprigging out. So as I say, you can imagine trying to do this when you've got your engines fitted to the wings and the propellers are on there, and you know, so there we are. That's not so bad, but you can see that once we actually get it in, the fit isn't bad, but we do have a bit of a step all the way around, so it does need sanding. So again, you can imagine sanding in there with all these inlets and everything in the way. You have the wing up here, you hold the whole model, you have the propeller here spinning around. It's just a nightmare. So I think getting these to fit now and then blending them in and everything with the engine like that is going to be a lot easier than doing it on the wing. So that's why I'm going to all this fuss. Now there are those out you that I can see you already, you're on your keyboards, but this is supposed to be for newbies. Yes, it is. It is for newbies. But it's also for those people, as I've said all along, those people who just want to take their modelling that one step further and not just go by the instructions and realise at the end they've got a problem. You know, they can follow along here and think, I can correct that, I can make that better, and perhaps make their Lancaster better than the one that's next to it on the judges' table. You know, it's still out of the box. You're not really changing anything. So I guess I'm going to add a shaft. I don't know if that's going to apply or not, but anyway. But as far as we go at the moment, we're still out of the box. So we've got that fitted in there, so that's all done. So we need to do the same on here and on here, and to some extent on here as well, because that doesn't really fit in there very perfectly. But anyway, bit of work to do. I think what we'll do there is just perhaps remove some plastic from here, perhaps just to let it go up. There we go. So, you know, it's just fettling and getting them to fit, really. I think everybody's model is probably going to be different, but I'm sure we can all make it work. Now, if you want to go by the instructions, then go by the instructions. One option I thought of is what you could do is do all this work now, number them 1, 2, because the engines on the Lancaster are 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's from port, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So you could do this, fit them all up, and then number them on the backs 1, 2, 3, 4, and then build as per the instructions. And then you know when you come to fit them, they're going to fit. I mean, what you could do is hold that in there now, sand it, get it all blended, and then you know it's going to fit when you come to fit it. So that's one option. The other option, as I said earlier, is to put this pin through here. Okay, as per the instructions, put this back plate on. And then what they want you to do is put the propeller on. Okay, and that holds the back plate, and then you put the spinner on. Well, the other option, the other problem we've got here is when you come to fit the back plate to the spinner, I haven't got these off the sprue yet, but that's not a particularly nice joint either. Okay, so I'd rather sort of work on that off the plane than on it. And how are you going to sand and blend that joint without damaging your exhaust and everything, which are all sticking out? So there's another option. Although you could do it before you actually fit it to the engine, so that's fair enough. Another problem, this pin is like a prick in a top hat in the actual panel there. So your propeller is going to be off center, and if it's got the slight bit of play in it, it's going to be all hanging down and saggy, so that's another problem. So I'm kind of, what can we do about this? So I've looked at, the other problem is this piece on the back here isn't central to the pin on there. So because what I was going to do was make a disc up on the back and sort of hold this in place in the center with a back plate, so that you're pushing against the back plate. But then I thought, well, if that back plate pops off, then you've lost it. But you can see on there the amount of play you've got. There is a lot of play in there. So what I thought about doing was perhaps get rid of that completely. And I measured this up, and this is about 1.5 millimeters. So I've got some 1.5 millimeter bar, and I thought I need to make up a boss or something to go in here that will hold central into there. I thought, well, hang on a minute, we've got needle prop propellers which we're going to use, and we've got paddle props which we're not going to use. So I've taken the paddle prop, cut the blades off, as you can see there, open this hole up, and now I can glue this in the back. So I can hold that in position in there, just like so. And I can take some extra thin and glue that into the back of there. Plenty on there, get it nice and wet, a welded solid joint. And I'm going to make sure the propeller is turned so one blade is at 12 o'clock, because at the bottom we have this flat here. So that's like that, and I'm just going to quickly check that it still goes in there. Yes, it does. That's lovely. And what I'm going to do is let that glue gel off. You can see it's making a nice welded, because this Airfix plastic is so soft, it's making a nice welded joint for itself. Okay. What I've done, I've drilled this out with a 1.6 millimeter drill, so that now what I can do is press this into the back of my needle prop propeller. Sorry, get the right way around. I can press this into the back of there and literally push it in, it'll stay. Okay, I can cut that off to like 1 inch length, and then that brass will pass through there like that, and the propeller will sit in there with the weight of the brass holding it. It'll be nice and stable, and it will sit nice and true. So what we can do is, as I say, once this is in and gelled up, and we've got a really nice tough glue joint in there, what I can do is centre it up, centre it top and bottom, centre it left to right, and make sure it's square. And then once that's happened, we'll leave that to cure, put some sprue glue around it, or maybe some super glue or something, and just until we're happy. So I'm going to let that gel off, and then, as I say, put something around it once we've got it all square. I'm going to carry on and do the rest, but all I'm doing, you can see I've got the paddle prop blades here. So just going in the back with a 1.6mm drill, letting the drill do the cutting so it finds its own way, so it's fairly central. I'll feel it come through the back on my finger. Eventually. There we go, it's come out the back. So now we have in there a 1.6mm hole, and we can put our, just check our 1.5mm brass slide straight in there. So basically what we're doing is using the paddle prop blades as a boss to hold our, where's the other one I made earlier? This one here I made a bit oversized, so you can see that's a little bit large in there. But it goes in. So as I say, we'll make sure that blade's at 12 o'clock. Just looking outside, I thought I heard it rain. I've got to take Jess for a walk. Okay, I'm going to actually trim that back a bit further because it may foul on the inside. you just plonk that on there. Will you please stay upright? First time I've said that, eh? As you can hear in my voice, I've still got this stinking bloody cold. And there we go. So that can sit there and gel off. There we are, there's another one done. So that's my little suggestion for making life a lot easier with fitting these intakes. It also means we can spray it all camo, all decals, everything without any propellers on there. And then just right at the end, just plonk the propellers on. And hopefully it'll all look good. There we are. So as I say, we'll let that all let those gel off, and then we can pull them around and make sure they're square and straight. I'll go in there so I can check it, make sure it's all central, make sure it's square, which I don't think it is. But, yeah, that glue is still a bit soft. So once that's gelled off a bit better, I shall, yes, I am putting loads of glue on there because I want a very strong joint. I do not want that to go popping off on the inside. Although I see no reason why it should. Of course, the other thing you can do, if you want to use a metal shaft, use a steel shaft, place a magnet at the end of there, and your propellers will be held in with magnets. With this way, if you pick your model up and shake it like that, the props will probably fall out. But if you pick your model up and shake it like that, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing that? So there you go. So there we are, that's just a little suggestion. And as I say, you don't have to do this, you can stick to the instructions, but if you do stick to the instructions, I would at least fit these up, get them all fitted nicely now, number them 1, 2, 3, 4, and then when you come to fit them at the end with the props on it, you know they're just going to glue on and you're not going to have any seam work to do, or at least too much seam work to do. So there we go. Right, I'm going to do the rest of these and then I'll come back. Alright, so half an hour later, whatever, we've had nice walks and everything. So as you can see, I've put some clear, sprue goo on the back of here now, just to give it a bit of strength. I'm not using super glue at the moment because I want to be able to manipulate them around. So I've just done a beginner's video as well yet. It hasn't gone out yet. It's about tools. And one of the things I talk about are these are digital calipers, and they are just so handy to have on your bench, because for things like this, I mean, I want to make sure that hole is in the center of this circle here. So I can come along and I can stick it in there and I can measure the distance there and it's 3.95, and I can measure the distance there and it's 3.86. So I'll just squeeze this one down a touch, just like that, 3.9, and now that one's 3.9, and then I can check 12 o'clock and 3.77, so I'll just pull that down a bit, 3.8, just put it down a bit more, 3.8, it's not going to go anymore, so 3.9, there we go. You can see that's roughly centered now, which is good enough. It doesn't need to be micron perfect. Then we can put that shaft in there and we can look at it for a square. We can use a square on it if we want to. Where is our square? Here it is. A bit cumbersome really, but you know, we can see that it's, you can eye it up and you can see that it's pretty good. So there we go. So now we've got that central and square. As I say, these things are invaluable, and having that sprue goo in there means I can sort of still pull it around and move it about and everything, and works a treat. So you can see there's another one there. So there we go. And as I say, I know this is going to raise loads of comments, and this is not something that I would expect a beginner to do for 1 minute. Having said that, I would not expect a beginner to be having to deal with everything when the propellers are on. So it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But all I wanted to do was get some length in here. I wanted to fill that hole in, so it was like 1.5 mil, and get some length to support the propeller so that it wasn't all, you know, if it was just in there like that, you can see that with all that length it's quite rigid. So that's what I wanted to do. And also it gives you a bit more friction to stop the propellers just readily falling out all the time. But I think that's a solution, and we'll hope it works out. So now I can actually put the propellers together with their spinners, deal with that seam around the back. Yes, I know there's supposed to be a seam there, but it's not supposed to be as big as it is on here. And also we can get it all sanded and blended and have it all nicely fitted and rounding up. We can offer the propeller up to here. If we find that it's a bit off center, if it's a bit too big, we can manipulate it, mess around with it stuff, take the propeller off, sand it, you know, and just work on it separately rather than having to wreck all of this. So the next step of the process is now going to be gluing these in here. And as you can see, that goes in there lovely. We'll do a bit of fettling and get it to fit better. But I want to get those, I want to make sure those backs are pretty solid first. And then we can deal with the seams all around here. And then we can start adding our greeblies onto our engines. And then we can add our engines to our wings like so. We can get them on, deal with the tops, and then we have a complete airframe with 4 engines that we can just not worry about greeblies getting broken off and everything. So I'm going to leave that for a minute and come back. It'll be a couple of seconds for you. It's going to be probably a day or two for me because I want these to be where the other one's still in there, isn't it? I want these to be pretty much set solid before I carry on. You can also see that on here I've been hacking away a little bit at that bottom corner, and that was because one of these, yeah, this one here, which I just dropped, this one here I've got it slightly off. I've got it round at about 1 o'clock instead of 12 o'clock. So I just made some clearance in there so that that goes in. But as you can see, they've all got this problem with the angle there. They all go in nice and flush here, but they've all got the angle there. So either we're going to clamp them in and let them dry, or we're going to sand a bit off of here to let them go back in a touch further. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And then what I want to be doing is getting these glued in, sanded, and then Mr. Surfacer, and then round with the cotton bud, just like we did on the wing. And that'll give us a nice, neat panel line all the way around then. So, as you can see, rather than just throwing it together and having seams and joints everywhere, just take your time, have little breaks from it, let things cure, use some patience, just calm down and be patient, and you will end up with a beautiful, beautiful model. So I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, so we're back. This is about 5 days later now. So these hubs, these pieces on here that I glued on the back have had a good time to go hard and nice and solid and everything. So they're cool. I can't remember if I said it already, but I'm going to say it again just in case. Bearing in mind that I've designed this for newbies, not beginners, but people that are fairly new to the hobby. It's a bit much for an absolute beginner to pick up. But this conversion I'm doing here is, it's not using any aftermarket. It's fairly simple. All you need is a couple of drills and some sprue goo, and you can do it from the kit parts. Remember, this is the paddle bladed prop hubs. But by all means, you don't have to do this. Build the model to the instructions. But one thing I would suggest before you fit the engines to the wing, okay, I would get these parts off the sprue and number them like I have here. Now this is number 1. You can see I've got 1 dot on there, 1 dot on there, so I can get them all mixed up. This is number 3, and there's number 3 there. Okay, so I've got them numbered so I know which one fits where. And I would actually fit these before you fit your props, okay? Because the reason being, don't glue them on, just fit them. The reason being, I've had to do a lot of carving in here, okay, to get them to fit. I've also had to do some carving up here. The carving up there is more than likely because I've been adding sprue goo and stuff up there. So you probably won't have to do that. But definitely down here, I've done nothing to change anything, and I've had to open up every one of these engine intakes around here, and also I've had to carve down that lump in there where you've got the peg and the hole. I've had to remove that, and I've also had to remove plastic from here, from that area there, on all of them. So I would get them numbered up just like that, and then fit them, get them so you can hold them in place and they fit nicely, because the other thing I found was when they went in, and as we've still got with this one, when you push it home, it's going off that way. So I'm going to have to take some more plastic from here, okay, just to make sure it's going to fit in there nicely. Make sure I've got number 3. Yes, I have. And there we go, when I push it back in now it's nice and level on both sides. So do that, get them to fit, and then you can just put them back in your box if you're going to follow the instructions and do it with the pin on the back with the propeller on the front, and then fit them. But you don't really want to be having to do all that when you've got the propeller on there, because it's going to be very, very difficult. You basically just want to be able to put them in place, glue them on, job done. But I've done it this way, and this is the way I'm going to stick with. And as I say, you don't have to. So we need to make sure that's gone in there, and we're going to make sure the bottom goes in first. We're not going to worry about the top for now. We're just going to do the bottom. So that's gone in nicely, and we've got a nice seam all the way around. Now I'm just looking here, and I can see that this panel line gets wider as we go up. So what I'm going to do is just take my Infinity sanding stick, and I'm just going to remove a tiny amount of plastic from here, just to try and improve the fit. Now these parts are always troublesome on Lancasters. They're a nightmare. So it's best to get it right now. There we go. So you can see now, just by removing that tiny bit of plastic, that panel line is now evened up, and it's fitting in there lovely. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use these clamps. These clamps are from Rebel Hobby in Sweden. Okay, because every time I use them, people ask where they're from. So you can look them up. They're Rebel Hobby in Sweden. And I'm just going to clamp this in place. And I'm really not very happy about that, because we've got I'm going to clamp them in the middle here, because what I'm not happy about, we've got the foam going onto the edge, and I want to put glue in, and what will happen is the glue will capillary under the foam. So I'm going to see if I can clamp it in there instead. And that looks pretty good. So that's held it in position. I want to make sure it's central. I just want to make sure it's going to stay in place, which it appears it is. Okay. But what I'm not happy about is it's not sitting central. There's something there's something pushing it over that way. I've removed all the plastic from there. Maybe I should remove some more from that lower corner here. Something, when I push it back, something's pushing it over that way. And now you can see this is testament to why it's so important getting this done now. It's looking like it's possibly that end of that spinner. So what I'll do, I'll remove some material from there. And it's still over that way. And I don't know why. Seems very strange. Maybe remove some more from there. I think what we're going to have to do is just glue it in place and then come back and blend it after. What I'd like to do is not have this foam on these clamps, but I don't want to take it off just for this, because the foam is very handy for other stuff. It's not clamping it because it's the wrong side of the... maybe I can get a piece of plastic or something, put over the... Get something to put over it so that the foam doesn't contact. There we go, that's done that nicely. So there we go, we've now got the foam is not anywhere near the seam where I'm going to put the cement. So that's clamped nice and solidly in place. And all I'm going to do is get a drop of extra thin and just put a drop there and a drop there. And I'm hoping it's going to capillary around. I'll put a drop there as well. I'm hoping that's going to capillary around. We'll let that dry and then we'll sand it out nicely. So I'm going to do that again another 3 times, and then I'll come back and I can show you how they look. Okay, so glue's all dry now. I've removed all the clamps, and as you can see I've sanded this one out, and it's it's lovely. They've come out absolutely gorgeous. And all it takes is a light sanding, quick run around with a pointed tool. I've just basically run over the front here just to make sure they're nice and flat where the spinners are going to go. So here's one I've only done this one, I haven't touched these three. But you can see the beauty now of making sure, taking your time and getting all this to fit nicely, because now what I can do is come in with this worn out 400 grit, which is like a 600 grit. And as you can see, because of the black paint, I can see where I'm sanding, and I'm just blending it all in. And it doesn't have to be perfect because it wasn't a perfect fit in reality anyway. But at this scale, you don't want any big bumps or steps or anything, because remember, any steps or bumps that you make, you've got to times it by 72. So you think about it, if you had a step that big, which would be massive in reality, in 70-second scale, that'll be next to nothing. So just don't leave big lumps and bumps and say, oh, that's my excuse. Now you can see on there, if I can catch it in the light, you can see that we've got a shiny area of plastic, which means I need to sand some more here just to blend that in. There we go, that's it, done. It just shows you the value in doing this, and also the value in not having all these bits stuck on here that are going to get in the way, because if these side intakes here were on, I wouldn't be able to do this. So it's a change of the build sequence to make life easier for yourself, and that's something you should always be looking out for. It's like you see daft things. I was watching a review, what was it? It was a 30-second scale F-35 from Trumpeter. And one of the first things they have you doing is fitting an F-35B, and you've got the lid that opens up on the top for the downward facing fan. And that's one of the first things they have you do, is fitting that. It's like, it's crazy. It's like that Hachette Partworks Lancaster I'm doing, where they get you fitting the pitot tube and the antenna to the nose before you've even put the nose apart together. So what I'm doing here is just getting this sharp tool and just running it along the line. There we go. Just run it along the line just to make a panel line, because it was a panel line in real life. And as you can see, with the dirty sander with the black paint in it, the black paint dust, it's showing us we got our panel lines there. So that's that. And that's how we go about it. Just so much easier than doing it at the end. But as I say, if you don't feel up to doing the conversion with cutting off and putting those little hubs in behind and everything, and you don't have the rod or whatever, then just build it as per the instructions. But as I say, I would get these off the sprue and fit them now, so you know that everything is going to fit when it comes to the end and you've got the propellers on, and you need to glue them on, because the last thing you want to be doing is trying to do this when you've got propellers in the way. You can imagine, can't you? Trying to do this when you've got a propeller stuck on there. So that's why I made the change. And then once again, get the tool, just go around, follow the line, just like so. Just follow the line, just to get your panel line in there. It's all going to be painted black anyway, so. And I don't think I'll be putting a wash on this, because the model itself has got pretty heavy panel lines and stuff, and I don't want to sort of accentuate them. If you look on here, you can see we got all these panel lines on the wings and everything, and they're quite accentuated, and the ones on the fuselage, and I don't really want to bring them out, because I don't think that they make it look more like a die cast, I think, than an accurate scale model. So we probably just won't bother with a wash, or certainly not a wash to pick up panel lines. Now this one here, you can see this one's got quite a step, so there might be quite a step the other way on this side. So there we go. Yeah, so this one's moved over, this intake has moved over that way very slightly. So we're just going to blend it in. There we go. and then a 1000 grit sponge just to take away any little nooks and crannies, and then again go around with the tool, and there we are. Job done. There we are. Right, so all looking good. That's interesting. These outboard engines have got scoops on both sides, but the inboard engines have only got a scoop on the left side. I don't know if that's a mistake from Airfix or what. But, anyway, we shall see. So we could just do some seam checking here, just check that all is good on the tops. See, we've got a lump or something there. There we go, and just do a seam check here. And there we go. All good. So what we can do now, I think I'm going to break the sequence again, and I think what I'm going to do is get these engines onto the wing, fit it up, blend it in, because we've got now to work on these panels at the top, and it'd be easier to sand them in and blend in everything without those exhaust shrouds in the way. And then what we can do is, once the engines are on and all fitted up and nice and everything, then we can get on and you can see how it's going to look. It's looking lovely. We can get on and fit our little bits and pieces. You can see we've got a bit of a line there, so we'll sand that out. We basically want to be able to sand it, and then so we have no seam line in the middle whatsoever. Right, so there we go. So I think the next thing to do is to clean off our sanding stick. You can see this brown on here. This is from doing the oils of the B.III that you would have seen many moons ago. So there we go. Right, let's see if we can get these engines glued on. Okay, so going back to the instructions, as I say, we haven't fitted all these little bits and pieces on the engines yet. We're going to leave those until after we've fitted them. So it's asking us first of all to fit the inboard engines, and they're both the same, they're identical, so we don't need to, there's no particular left and right or anything. So here we can glue these on. Now we do have a very thin layer of black primer here. I'm not going to worry about that. The glue will actually penetrate that absolutely fine. So these engines are going to go around the outsides. You've got these plates here with the holes in. The engines are going to go around the outsides. So I'm going to take a clothes peg and clamp down the back end of the engine. In fact, I'm going to use one of these that are deeper. Go a bit deeper. So that's holding that one in place. And then get the other one. Whoopsie daisy, I just dropped it on the floor. Ah, dear, dear, dear. Get this one and get this one on. Again, we'll get another clothes peg on here. Just clamp that in place. Okay, so that's that held in place like that. Now, I've been having a little play with this, and I think probably the best way to get these engines to clamp down and sit, you can see they sort of, you can see it better on this one. They need to be pulled down and clamped in position. So what I'm going to do is put a rule across like so, and then put a clothes peg there, put a clothes peg there, put a clothes peg there, and put a clothes peg there. And that should hold those edges down. So what we can do now is come along with some extra thin. Just put a drop in there, put a drop in there, drop in there, and a drop in there. And then what I'm going to do is put a drop in here, drop in there, drop in there, and a drop in there. And that should be enough to hold that in place. We may get away with just putting a drop in here, in here, in here, and in here. I don't know if you've noticed, guys, but I tend to clamp everything before I glue it, because if you don't, you get glue oozing out everywhere. So I like to clamp things before I glue, and then when I've glued, that it's just sat where it is. Having said that, this one here is wanting to play around, and you can see when I squeeze it, we get glue oozing out. You see that there? See on this joint here, when I squeeze it, we get glue oozing out, and that's why I clamp before I glue, and I didn't quite have that clamped in the right place. So I'm just going to use the brush just to brush out any of that glue that oozed out. That should be good enough. Just going to put some more in here. I want to make sure I've got a nice strong solid joint at the backs of these engines. There we go. I think that'll do us. Maybe I'll put another drop in here, just to make sure they're nice and solid. And then hopefully the little fairings that go over and close all this off, hopefully they're going to fit nicely. If they don't, I don't know where we're going to go. Now these outboard engines, that's the wrong one, they're going to go in like this, and they fit beautifully into their little recesses. And I think what we'll do is let these inboard engines dry out first, and then we'll go in and do the outboards, because the we need to get some clamping and stuff doing, and I don't want to really be messing around. And then what we'll do is we'll ground these with Mr. Surfacer and the cotton bud, and we can do that in there again then, where we've got those little holes. So yeah, it's all coming together very, very nicely, and it's turning into a very, very lovely Lancaster. Right, let's let that dry, and then we'll come back in a few hours. There we are, a few hours have gone by, like 6 or 7 hours I'd guess. So we can take all these pegs off and our rule, and there we go, we have our engines now firmly on there. So what we're going to do is just come along with a drop of extra thin and just put some in there, just to make sure we've got a good strong joint, so we don't get any cracking or anything. There we go, just place that in, just touch and go, don't hang around, just let the end of the brush touch on the capillary action, will pull the glue in, that's it, you won't get any marks then. There we are, so that's that done. Right, now then, let's have a look at these outer engines. This one here, it's going to go in like that. How can I clamp that with a peg? It kind of feels a bit dodgy. Yeah, it's going to fly off. What about one of these pegs? That's even worse. Okay, so we're going to have to go back to our clamps, which I've got over there on another model, so I have to get them off, and we'll get our Rebel hobby clamps, see if we can clamp it in place with this. The pad coming off there for its double-sided tape. So we get that one on there. Now then, can we get this on here to clamp it in place? I just want to hold it. I don't want to just, yeah, this is the trouble. You see, it wants to slide off because of the taper on the wing. It wants to slide off. I'm kind of wondering if we'd be able to just glue it in place. Like so. In fact, if I use some quick setting to lock it in position, get some cement up under there, and we'll get some up under there. I don't really want to use the quick setting on the surface because it will leave a bigger mark in my experience. So we can just put that in there like that, let it run around. There we go. And just let that sit there. And we'll do the same on this side. It all fits beautifully. Just got a little bit of a lump on the end of there we need to get rid of. There we go. That's gone in there. Drop in there. Drop in there. Make sure we get plenty in there. Make sure it's nice and strong. And then I'm going to put a drop of the quick setting in here. That should capillary around and bite it into place. So there we are. So that's that gone in. Right. So I'm going to leave those to dry. And I think I'm going to call that a day for this video, because I think it's probably got up to about an hour now, isn't it? And then what I'll probably do off camera is I'll go around with some Mr. Surfacer. I was hoping to be able to put these upper panels on. We can on the outer engines. If you look in the instructions, the way they're asking us to do it is to put the undercarriage in first from the top, get all the undercarriage sorted out, and then later on, here we go, right up to stage 68 now, we're going to put these panels on. So, I mean, we can fit these outer ones, there's no reason why we can't do that. But, yeah, which is the, we had one of these loose, didn't we, that fell off the sprue, which I'm guessing should be in here, and it's not. So what have I done with that one? Have I put it back in the box? I'm hoping I haven't lost it, because if I have, no, here it is in the box. Yeah, that's one of the inner ones. So that's basically going to sit in there like that, so we can see now how the fit is. Look at that, it's perfect. Just shows you, so you take your time, get everything cleaned up, get it all fitted nicely, and you won't get any issues. Just check this side. And there we go, that one fits as well. So again, we'll put them in after with the undercarriage, and then we'll go around with some Mr. Surfacer. Doesn't even want to come out, that one. That is a really nice fit. Just pop it out like that. There we go. So that's all our engines fitted. So that was some work well worth doing, I think. We've now got those intakes and everything in, so we can go on now and put our little bits and pieces on. But I want to do these bits here first, because if we do have to do any sanding and blending, the last thing we want is to be touching these exhaust shrouds. So there we go. Right, I've just noticed we've got a different shape on that one than we have on that one. That one's sort of sitting wider. I don't think we'll worry about that too much for now. It will be covered up, I think, when the doors go in. Yeah, that one's got a definite kick out in it, or the inner's got a kick in. I'm not sure which way around it is, but hey ho. Right. Yeah, it's fitting. It's that piece there is kicked in. It's not. I thought it was the actual engine nacelle is kicked out. When the gear door goes on, it's going to be all covered up anyway. So there we are. Right, we'll let that go off, and I'll see you back for part 10. Is it next? And really starting to look like a Lancaster now, isn't she? Oops, she's lovely. It's beautiful. This is the best 1/72 scale Lancaster kit by far, in my opinion. We've got a lovely bit of dihedral. The panel lines are a bit OTT, but it's a lot nicer than the Revell kit. The actual build sequence is better. The actual overall strength of the kit is better. The problem with the Revell one, the wings just literally glued to the side of the fuselage, so they're constantly trying to pull that bomb bay apart, and they do actually win sometimes. So there we go. Right, I will see you back for part 10, and we will move forward. I don't know what's going to be next, but for now I'll let these engines dry. I'll see you for part 10. Part 10. Bye-bye.